Morning, guys. John here, Mr. Forex Fire. It is now the 16th of January, Monday, 2023. So I'm going to go over what happened the back end of last week and hopefully try and find a trade today on the London session, and then we'll do it again on the New York. Okay, so I'm just going to share the screen, and we can see this was the trade that I had taken. We've got the separators here. I'm on New York time, okay? So I'm just going to explain a bit more about this in a moment. And at the time, we had a high and a low, and we went down to a 15-minute previous on the swing, okay? And then from there, I'm just going to go to put it onto London time. So 9 o'clock came on the open, okay? We had a grab up on the top side here. And if we take it from the 15 minutes down to the 1 minute, and just get this across, if it's going to, yeah, it's going to allow me. And what we had was, if we just bring up the text, okay? And I put on the plan that I've been using, okay? So first of all, we were looking for a liquidity grab, okay? So we had the liquidity grab from the far left here, okay? We came up from the London high previous to the open, okay? And then at 9 o'clock, which is here, the London open, we come right down on this liquidity grab with a displacement. And the displacement was around about 30 pips or so coming through, come from the high to the swing, come and take it out this. Okay, and when we get a displacement, we look for fair value gaps, and I identified two here. I got in on a trade here early on, and unfortunately, obviously, we lost out on that. But then I got a second entry on the higher one, and we broke the high low. We set the limit order. The SL we put after the fair value gap, so I just put it on the swing high, and I was targeting down to the London low. We eventually got that for a 1 to 6.32. Okay, so again, just to run you through this horizontal line, yes, it says 5 o'clock in the morning here, but if I go back to New York time, it's actually midnight of New York. And then we work our way through, and we wait for around about 5 a.m. on the morning of New York. This gives us the time for London Open, and you can see on here 5 a.m. on the bottom here, right, where we got an entry. If I go back to London time, the London Open was around about this area here, where we took a small liquidity grab up on the higher side before we got the displacement. So again, that was the London. The London came up and took away here. We come down displacement, leaving fair value gaps here. Okay, so I'm going to go back onto the hour. I'm going to go back onto, let's have a look, New York, and move this across. Auto. Where's my chart gone? Reset the chart. Need to come off the chart. There we are. Right. So we're going to go back to the hour. Okay. And we're going to reset everything. I'm going to go on to remove all the drawings. And you'll see on here, I've got a new indicator as well. ICT midnight. Again, this is going to show you the midnight open for that particular day. Again, what I'm going to be adding here is the previous day high So I've got this previous day high. I'm just going to put that into green, as well as if we save as, and we'll save that there. But I also want that in green. And then I've got a previous day low. So we'll make that red. And we'll just go PRV daily low. And we'll make that red. And then we're going to save that. And then from there, I've got the midnight. I'm then going to go down to 15 minutes. Again, we're on London time here. So I just want to go to New York. Make sure this is the midnight. That's the midnight. 1 minute. And then I need to have a look for the kill zones. The kill zones will come up once we get into the 9 o'clock open. So if I just go back to the London, because we're going to be working on the London open at 9 o'clock. There we are. We'll see that on there. And I'm just going to place horizontal here. And the low at the moment, just before the open, I'm going to put one there. And then we'll pause the video. We'll be back on the London Open around about 9 o'clock. I'll be back in a second. Right, guys. So we've got things set up here. Again, we've got, I've now got it set on to obviously UK time. So I've got it, the algorithm set with all the templates from New York. Okay. We're coming down towards the sell side. We've come underneath some highlighted levels. Again, the half 8, I think this was from around about the other day as well, on the Friday. We're waiting for a sweep, a take. If we just get the plan up. And again, this is going to be my second time trying to trade this. Okay, so my bias is I'm going to be looking for a buy, to be fair. We're waiting for a liquidity grab. And then the displacement is when we come back up through the area. And after we get that displacement, we'll be looking for the fair value gap. Okay. Again, still early days. We're just coming up to, we're just after half 8 on the London session at the moment. There's a London kill box starting to come into play. So again, we wait for a liquidity grab and then the displacement to go back to the other side, leaving behind a fair value gap. And then we're looking for the break high low. And then we can set the limit order and then put the SL underneath the swing or underneath the fair value gap. And then the TP levels, if we do go in for a buy, I'm going to be looking for this level here on the swing, possibly this level here, and also a level up here. Again, I'll probably use these as take partial areas, but overall, we may look for the previous daily high overall. Okay, so we've got the previous daily high, the previous daily low set up. We've got the midnight open area. Okay, this is the midnight open. This is where we come into this session. We've got the midnight high, and we've got a level from the previous trading day. Okay, so we've got some sort of sweep here We're now in the London zone, the London kill zone. I'm waiting for a spike a little bit further up, possibly to take some levels here and then leave behind the fair value gap. I'm going to sit on my hands at the moment and then let the minute, the 1 minute candles play out. We'll just go to 5 minutes and then we can see what we see from there, guys. Okay, so I will be back in a short while. Hi guys, I just thought I'd come back on, obviously, to run through the plan with this again. Okay, again, I'm on London time at the moment, but we started off just so you guys can sort of take notes. Again, I'm not perfect at this, but I'm aiming to get better. Okay, we've got the New York, we've got a vertical line on Monday, 16th January, midnight, and we've got this as midnight open. Okay, from there we have got the KZ boxes, which is the kill zone, which will come up on their own once we get into the kill zone areas. Again, as we've came into the midnight open, we can see here we've got the midnight line and the open of price, so we can use this as a target area. Again, we've got the midnight high. I put this as a horizontal rear. Okay, could be another area of importance. And I've also got marked up the previous day high and the previous day low. Okay, this 830 line, I do believe it consists of the previous trading day, which was back on the Friday of last week. Again, this would be the New York open time going into the kill zone. Okay, we've come back in to respect that area at the moment. So again, we then start following the plan. We need a liquidity grab. We've came in and touched that. So again, I'm not getting in too early on this. I'm expecting some sort of move. There may be a swoop down to take out liquidity on this side. And then we wait for the push in the opposite direction for displacement. Okay, so what I'm possibly looking at is this has came down, but it came back up. It's in the kill zone. I think there may be a sweep, then we may come down, then we may get that displacement, and then from there what we would be ultimately looking for is the fair value gap in here, with then what we have is our stop loss just under here, and then we can sort of target anywhere up to the previous day high, taking out partials from these areas here. Okay, so that is the bias of what I'm waiting for. It's just a matter of sitting on your hands and just letting this play out. Again, if we go back onto the London time, because we're on the London session, we will have till around about 10, half 10, 10:45, I do believe, before this kill zone box will close off. But hopefully you understand what I've got on there with regards to, we've got the midnight open, we've got the previous day high, previous day low, we've then got the midnight high, okay, across the top here, we've got the midnight open price, but we've also got the 830, which is the New York start of the New York kill zone here. We can see as we've come out, we come to retest it here, and then as prices came into the new day here, we've come back to retest it again. So again, I don't want to get too much into a trade just yet. There's too many things where we're going to be testing and respecting and possibly get that liquidity grab, then get that displacement, which I just shown you with the movement of the path here. Then we can start looking for that fair value gap once we get that. So as we move along, again, I'm just going to mark a couple of things up. Just going to put this here. Just visualization. I'm a very visual person when it comes to my trading. I just want to see, hopefully I want to see some sort of sweep on this bottom side, to be fair, before we get a displacement above these sort of areas. But we shall see. We shall see. Again, we just take our time, and then hopefully you're going to take a little something away from this sort of stuff. Whether I win, whether I lose or whether I break even. It's all about progressing and learning. From my side of things, the more I do content on this and I'm vlogging this sort of stuff, whether I win, lose, or break even, I'm learning as well along the way, because I'm having to sit on my hands during the trading session, and then just seeing if my bias holds, you know. So we shall be back in a second, guys. All right, so from what I can see, okay, we've got a fair value gap here, okay. So this has sort of put me off a little bit at the moment, simply because we're in consolidation at the moment in the kill zone, and we'll be coming up to the 9 o'clock in about 13 candles time. So we may get, I don't know, a push up and then come down to take the previous daily low before then taking off. It's just something I'm mindful of. Again, I'm just going to watch this a little bit longer. I don't want to get into something too early. Again, getting into a trade just before 9 o'clock can be a little bit dangerous, because again, we are expecting a little bit of volatility just before 9 o'clock, okay, which has happened pre here. So we've got 8 o'clock candles around about from here, and if you've noticed, we've just basically came straight down to make a low from this high point, again into consolidation. I do expect we had a little bit of a liquidity grab from these two candles here, and then it swooped down a bit more, but it didn't really leave behind any fair value gap, apart from on this bit here, okay. It's now starting to fill that out, but again, we may find that this may go and attack the previous day low, to be honest. So there may not be a buy situation in this. We just need to wait and, like I say, sit in our hands and see what happens come towards 9 o'clock. And the more you do this and the more you practice price watching, as I call it, price watching, and just understanding the flow of the price, then you're going to learn to become a bit more patient and adapt yourself to the markets a bit more than just looking for, like I say, these swing points for the big moves. You've got to really drill it down. Here comes another drive, another push. So again, if we come and take this out, we wait a little bit longer and see what happens, to see if there's going to be another fair value gap formed. But again, this is wanting to go lower than 121.90, you know. I was looking for a buy at around about here, but I'm glad I sat on my hands. It does want to come lower by the look of it. And again, we may find that it's going to come even lower down to this area, you know. Again, it's all about sitting on your hands and not getting trigger happy and getting in on the trade too early. I'll pause the video here. Again, we've got our fair value gaps here and here. We had a little bit of a grab up on this side as we were coming between the 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock. Generally, it's where I normally look to set a trade, but I do think this is wanting to come lower than what it's actually showing at the moment. Again, from a liquidity side of things, we're coming even lower now. So again, we might just get a purge on this, then we might get a take up on the fair value gaps. And if I do get a push up towards here, if it leaves a fair value gap between this space on the displacement, then I'll be looking to get in on the buy now. I'm just keeping a very close eye on how this is reacting with regards to what it's leaving behind and how it's attacking certain areas. At the moment, it's consolidating between a couple of areas. We'll be back in a short while. Hey guys, so I might risk it for a biscuit again, going on the news, because we never checked the news this morning. We've got news coming out now on the housing equity. Again, let's have a look. We've got the Bank of England, Governor Bailey speaks at 3 o'clock this afternoon. So So there is some news at the moment. Home loans. Let's just take a look. Actual previous. Right. So again, this has ended us on a trade here. I am going to try on, let's have a look. We're looking at what, 34 pips and 10 pips. So go for the sell. I'll go 12 pips, 34 pips, and I only want to risk a 0.5. So I'm going to try a sell position there at the moment, just as a little bit of a risk. We'll see what we can do from there. Again, this isn't about being perfect. It's just seeing what we can get from what the markets are showing at the moment. We are going to be coming into the 9 o'clock open in a second. But again, if we do go for this liquidity grab here and then we get a push above this high, I'll wait for the displacement and the fair value gap on here. But I think this might actually push a little bit lower. I could be wrong, but we shall see. Okay. Again, risk to reward of around about 1 to 4.5. We'll see what happens with this. I'll pause the video. We'll be back in a short while. At the moment, we've got this consolidated area here. And then from there, we had a little bit more of a push down, leaving behind not just this fair value gap, which came in and touched nicely, but it's also left a little one a little bit higher up, but it's already played into the fair value gap a bit. So we'll see if this is going to want to push a little bit lower, or in fact, if this is just going to be a grab towards its lower side before taking off. Be back in a short while. So I'll come back on the chart here because we're now at the 9 o'clock open. And we'll see if we'll get this sort of reaction. We might find that this trade gets taken out, to be fair. But we shall see. We shall see. Again, if we do get this go towards the higher side, taking out these previous lower highs, and it leaves a good fair value gap with a displacement, then I'll be looking to change the direction of the bias. But we're too close to this previous daily low, to be fair. I mean, at the minute, we're only 30 pips off the previous daily low. So for me, it seems to be a fair target for it to want to go to. But again, it might be just inducing the sellers, to be fair. Let's just have a look. We're back into that little bit of drawdown at the moment. Again, we started the day at 147 and a penny of profit. And price action as we came down, obviously it's mitigating the fair value gap here. There's nothing really left behind on these parts. Just here comes another push down. Hopefully here comes the drive with a bit look. 2 minutes into the London Open. It would be nice to see this sort of liquidity, because as we come down the drive, a little bit of a pullback. It would be nice to see this bit taken, because if we get this, we might get another drive as well, to be fair. And as we go along, I'll tidy the charts up as well, just so we can see how price flows. I'll be back in a short while, guys, and we'll be tidying up the chart a little bit. We'll see. We'll get this nice little push down. We're now 3 minutes into. Always forget to do this bit. There we are. It just helps with the screen. It would be nice to see what happens in the first 5 minutes, to be honest with this. We'll go back on the 5-minute candle a minute. On the 1 minute. I want to see a price purge further down here, to be honest. And then I'll be looking to close maybe when we get towards I don't know, when we get towards, maybe if I can get this to $30 of profit, I might look to close half of this out and move my SL to just above break even. But again, it's testing this area, to be honest. And sometimes this is where I fall foul, you know. Sometimes I close off a trade too early, or even move the SL a little bit too early. But this seems to be moving nicely towards where we want it to. Is it going to go 4? Will it go for this area? It looks like it's heading towards that. Just going to save the chart thing at the moment. I'm just going to pause the video. I'll be back in a second, guys. Right, so here we go, guys. I'm going to close a partial on this. Okay, so what we do is we go to the buy button. We can see we've got 42. So I'm just going to put 2100, and I'm going to buy part. I'm going to buy part of this back. And what you'll see is the price there. We've got some of the profits there, and I'm going to move this to just above the break-even area. And now we're running risk-free on this trade. We shall see. We'll see what it does, see if I've closed this off too early, or if not. In fact, from there, we've taken a little bit of profit, and if this comes back to stop us out, then overall, we have still had some profit for the day. And it's all about a simple process of just pushing yourself and learning each day. You know, don't worry about the outcome. Again, got to stress, this is on a paper trade. So I'm forward testing and live demoing certain things that I've come to hopefully think what I understand from the ICT stuff, especially with these liquidity grabs after certain times, with the displacements as well. And then obviously you look for your fair value gap. So like I say, what I'm looking at here is we've come just before the London Open. We've been in the kill zone. We've got a low to the high. We've come down and broke the structure here. We look for that liquidity grab, which is what happened here. We then looked for a fair value gap, which was this bit here. So again, as we've come into the kill zone, we consolidated a low, a high. We come down, taking out the liquidity on here, and then we looked on the previous deal low. This is where I'm targeting, and then from there I looked for, in the displacement of the liquidity grab, I looked for the fair value gap. We found it here. Entered little to no drawdown, albeit I got in a little bit later than what I was expecting, simply because obviously doing the video. But this would have been the optimal entry, like I say, if you go back on the video here. And then we're looking for break at high lows and then coming down. We've got the limit order set. We've got around about a 10 pip stop loss. We now took a partial and we've closed partial off, and we've got this running risk free with the pretense that we may, if we come back and stop us out, we've bagged another $3 to $4. But again, that taking a little bit out of the market doesn't bother me at the moment, as long as I'm getting the directional buys correct and I'm learning from it. That's the main thing, and I'm understanding from what I'm doing from the rules with regards to pre-London session open, lows and highs, liquidity grabs, to displacements, and then from there understanding that, searching for those fair value gaps, and then taking our trade from there. Okay, guys, again, if I was looking to get in on another trade, I would possibly be looking for, like I say, further grabs. Let's see if we get a further grab down on this side. If we decided after this pullback, we get a liquidity grab on this, we look for that displacement, and the displacement, see what leaves behind on a fair value gap. And if there is one, you could possibly get in on a second trade and have your stop loss a little bit further down from here, you know. So it's something that we can add into the trading plan, something we can add into the wave trading, but we just take it as it comes, one step at a time. And just remember, we are still early in the kill zone. It's still only 9:10. Okay, I shall pause the video. We'll be back in a short while. So we've come back up towards the entry. We got stopped out on the take profits where the SL was just below the break even. We've grabbed around about $9 of profit this morning. I'm happy with that. Gonna move forward with that. But again, we can see here, excuse me, we've got imbalance here. Is this going to be a change of direction? You're going to wait and see where this candle closes. And at the moment, we've got fair value there as well, you know. So if I just close out what we've previously been marked, and that's been fully mitigated. Again, we can get rid of the circle there. Get rid of that. We've had a break of structure from that side. The break of structure from that side. So now I've got two areas where we now, because it looks as if this may not actually come down to the previous daily low, we may get a mitigation into these areas to push higher. And again, I just want to highlight one or two areas. And I'm not going to get in on these trades just yet. I would like to see a mitigation from this area, to be fair, and then possibly a takeout on this higher side if I was thinking about going on that buy side. But we'll just see what kind of reaction we get from here. We fully mitigated through this area. Like I say, we might be getting some sort of a reversal shortly. It's still 15 minutes into the kill zone, to be fair. There's a mitigation into the imbalance. Again, this isn't always about being correct. There's the 8:30 from the Fridays, okay? So there's been a liquidity grab on here. So this is ticking off this part here, okay? We've got the liquidity grab. We've certainly got the liquidity grab here. Okay, and as we got the liquidity grab, we're now getting a bit of a spike in price, leaving behind the displacement from this area here. And then we've got the fair value gap has formed. So you could, like I say, I haven't ended this. You would have possibly had a trade there. And you could target, like I see, up to the fair value gaps here. And we'll just see what happens with this. Again, I haven't ended this bit. I'm just like sort of trying to understand price the best way I can. I just want to see the structure holds. What we can do, we just mark up obviously where liquidity has formed. So if we get a push above here, we can see from the push of liquidity grab here, any displacement do we leave behind a fair value gap for a 2 and 2 entry. So this will be the first one. If we get a push out of here, we want to see from that displacement if there's a fair value gap gets placed on here, if that makes sense. But we just watch and learn and see how price moves, okay? We've got around about just under 50 seconds left of this candle. Let's just see if we get that push to the higher side. I'll pause the video, be back in a second. So it looks like we've just missed that entry on the buy side, to be fair, guys, for a 1 to 3.68. But again, this is all about learning. We may get another entry with a fair value gap. Price action at the moment, okay? Like I said, you can watch this video back. You can see what we were looking at. Price action here has just been fairly fluid. And here comes the push. Possibly going to leave behind another fair value gap. And what you can see on here is from that aspect, okay, we take a liquidity here. The next step for the liquidity is here, and then we've got an imbalance area right there. That's why I had a target area to there. 3 seconds left of this candle, 1 second left. We're now going to mark up this here. We'll see, we're going to play back down into this area of this candle because it's just been buying pressure. Or will we actually only come in halfway, mitigate after the break, okay? After we've had a break of this liquidity, we may come down to touch into this area here to then bounce off, to then go to this area. Let's just see how price reacts. Like I say, it's good to mark up these things as they happen because you're going to get a better understanding on liquidity and fair value gaps yourself when you're watching these. There goes the price surge. We've gone up and we've took a grab to this higher side. We may come down, like I say, we may come down and get a bounce off this line now as well, to be fair, just to mitigate onto it. 50% of the area. Like I say, we just put out a long position there. For a long position there, you could have the short about there. You may be able to get a second entry as well, to be honest, and have it around. So there's a 1 to 2.5 there. But again, it would need to come down to swoop. It would need to come down to swoop into here to take off up onto there, you know. I think this is just about price watching at the moment for me. Yeah, we'll see what happens. Hasn't come down to mitigate into a possible second entry area. It looks like it might actually go and take this out. I'll be 2 seconds, guys. It will go. I'm going to close out this video a little bit earlier than what I was going to do today because obviously we're getting a winning trade. We got a take partial and we moved the SL to just below the break even on the sell this morning as we were swooping down to take the previous lunch hour of the New York session from Friday. Again, the initial move was a directional bias of a buy. However, I seen an area where we could have taken a sell down into this area. We took advantage of that and we won that. Again, I predetermined this move here with a pullback. Obviously, this had just touched in before I could hit that buy button. So we just missed out on a nice 1 to 3.68 on this. It's come to beautifully mitigate just about into it. There is a possible second entry on the buy side because as we've come up and took liquidity from here on these sides, you can see here we've got an imbalance area or a fair value gap right about here. We could be waiting for price to come in to mitigate into the halfway of that FVG fair value gap because we've got a nice displacement to the high side taking this liquidity, waiting for a drive back down. But again, looking on the high side, you could still see, yeah, well, we will take that. We could possibly even take that to the midnight open, to be fair. So we'll see if price will come down on here. In fact, we I might just say take a trade on here and take a 1 to 769. So we see 9 pips. We'll get in on here. I'll see. All right. We'll take a buy. We'll do over 10 pips. I'm only going to risk 0.5%. And then, like I said, a take profit. We're looking around about 70 pips. 70 pips. And then we'll set that as a trade as well. We've got a buy limit now. And this one may be a little bit riskier. Again, excuse me. You can see from this aspect, what I marked earlier this morning, we've come in beautifully, 50% of that. So we may get a player back down into this area. Hopefully, if this bit holds structure, we'll go for that 1 to 7.69%. Let's see if this will hold structure. If I'm honest with you, possibly should be keeping this below here, to be fair. Let's just have a look. Excuse me. Got a 1 to 5. That would take us to there. We'll make it a 1 to 5, in fact. See if we get there. We've got new liquidity residing here. Okay. We just want to see that nice little push. We've got a range. Like I said, there's not much of a downturn on here, but we've got like a trend line liquidity formed there. But I'm waiting for price to, as I see it, come down from this high, swoop down into the fair value gap of this, taking a bit more of the fair value gap, because as you can see here, it has mitigated into it a little bit. That's your fair value gap there. I want the entry to come into here, see if we can get that touch. We've got the liquidity grab from there. We've got the displacement with the fair value gap here. Okay. We've broken high here, got the high low, and then we've set the limit order with the fair value gap. I have widened that to a 13 pip SL. We'll see if we can hold structure. And like I say, I'll go to target the midnight open. So the midnight open is where we first started for price. Price started coming down. Since the start of this session in the midnight open, it has given us around about 80 pips or so. And at the moment, price from where it's at, it's around about 10 pips from an entry. Let's put this up here. This 8:30, just to remind you, the 8:30 is the lunch hour from the New York the other day on Friday. We've swept through that. So there was a liquidity grab there. Okay. There was a liquidity grab from that lunch hour there. And then it caused the displacement on here. Okay. This bit here, as we took out these previous lower highs. And as it done the liquidity grab, take out the lower highs, the displacement, and then the fair value gap was sought here. Wasn't quick enough to get in on the entry, which a little bit gutting, because like I see, we could have a nice 1 to 4 there. We could have grabbed so far. We're getting in on the second fair value gap here as we took out the second and third area of this lower high. We took out the first one here. We've got 1 and 2 here. Taking that out, touched into the fair value gap on the top, waiting for a flag pattern to come back into the fair value gap on the displacement here, and then hopefully we will go for it, and then hopefully price may come back up to the midnight high. We will be looking at maybe take partials from that aspect. Again, if we don't get an entry before we break here, we get an entry, we may take a partial here, maybe move to break even here, and then have another partial around about there, and then we'll be moving up the SL as we move up above here. So they're target areas at the moment. Just waiting to see what's going to happen with the price at the moment. We're still in the kill zone. We've got about another hour of volatility, if that, and then we'll take it from there, guys. All right, so again, let's have a little look on the price action and what's happened. Again, we mark this area of fair value gap. Look what's happened, guys. Touched beautifully, and as it's mitigated fully, look now what's happening. Now we're getting that flag formation to possibly come in to enter onto this area. It's been a liquidity grab from this standpoint. Let's just see if we do get the touch come down on there. I just want to go up to the 5 minute a minute. As we go higher up on the areas, again, we've got a 5 minute fair value gap. Let's just, like I say, from here to here is a fair value gap just before the entry. So I'm just going to minimize that off. So we are going to be coming back into this area by the look of it. It's just a matter of when it does mitigate into this and it triggers the area. Is this a big enough SL to hold? Again, we do have the fair value gap underneath, which is this here, hasn't fully mitigated into it. So I don't know, maybe that would have been a better option. I don't know. It's we may be risking it a bit with this trade, to be fair. We'll see what happens, and from there we'll see what happens with the price action. We've got, as you know, fair value gap there. We're going to get a little bit of a retracement. Price action as we've come down from this flag pattern. There's little to no sort of price in between from buying and selling, if you know what I mean. Like I said, what I mean by that, we're on about, you see, the fair value gap's created on its way down. There's one there, but it's very minuscule. There's one here. So we may get pullbacks into these areas here before we come down to try and mitigate into this bit. And like I say, I'm just trying to dissect everything the best I can to show you guys and get you guys to understand how the price action will work. We'll just see what happens with this. We've got 50 seconds. We'll see what happens with this 50 seconds. See if price is actually going to come up and touch into these, or will we come down to get towards an entry? Again, down to 35 seconds now. I don't know what it's like in your part of the world at the moment, in the country of the UK, up here in the northeast, in near Newcastle. It is snowing. It's not just a light dust, and there's a few inches of snow on the ground. So we've got 15 seconds. We'll come up to mitigate into that. Four seconds, and we're going to get a touch and mitigate fully into it. Not quite. There's the mitigation there. That's fully mitigated into it, and it's broke through it. So price has done that. We can get rid of that one. We've now got another one here, but again, that might just have been the pullback we needed before we get a continuation into this one here. And people think the 1 minute is a fast and furious sort of time frame to be trading on. It's not, in all honesty. It just, you're going to find you're going to be getting more stop losses hit and more liquidity grabs on the 1 minute, because the support and resistance lines on the 1 minute, 5 minute, 15 minutes, half an hour as well, I would say, even up onto the 1 hour, the support and resistance lines that you get on these time frames are minor. It's not until you go up to the 4 hour, the daily, the weekly, and monthly, they become more prominent and more stronger lines of support and resistance. And as you can see there, we mark this area up, touched beautifully into that unmitigated fair value gap. It's touched into it. Now we may get the price come down and probably start looking for that. So again, mark these up. From there, we've got liquidity residing here. So again, we're now within a swing range. We've got the fair value gap that was mitigated. You've got a range between a high and a low. We're just saying what price is wanting to do. We may find one of two things. Price may come, push through, and mitigate through this fair value gap to take liquidity here, leaving behind a fair value gap on this part here, or price might actually want to do what I was expecting and come down and mitigate on that to do the push further up. We'll just have to wait and see. There's the push coming through. That's mitigated through the fair value gap. So now the probability is this will now probably come to attack that area there. Again, we swept the previous flag down into this area. We'll just see what happens. We'll watch. We'll keep an eye on this for another 20 seconds before I pause the video. I could do this all day long, following price and doing a run commentary and explaining it to you, but I don't want to make this video too long, if that makes sense. So the buys at the moment, let's get that back. Just need to get that arrow. Will we come to attack this, or is it just a false pretense where the price might want to go lower? Here comes a push. Is it going to break above that? That's got to be around about a pip. Just under a pip away. Just under a pip from that liquidity grab up on that side. Again, if we get the push above that, I will be looking to close this position or limit order out, because we've created another liquidity grab and we've got a new low. There it is. So I'm going to close that position out. And then we've got that liquidity grab there. Again, I just want to see, from a standpoint, we can get rid of this liquidity because we broke through it now. For 46 seconds. There's the new fair value gap forming. We've had a liquidity grab. We've got a displacement to the high side. Fair value gap formed. Again, we're only halfway through this candle at the moment. 26 seconds left. And this is all formed from the liquidity grab from the lunchtime hour of Friday's trading session in New York. You know, it says 8:30 here. It's different time zones, to be fair. Let's just take a look. 4 seconds. We could move this position to possibly here. And there's a 1 to 3 there. If we just get rid of that, we get rid of that. Again, I'm not going to enter this trade. I'm just watching the price flow and price action, doing this live in front of you and calling it as I see it move around. So again, we've had that taken. We've had a liquidity grab. That's one. Displacement through it and then leaving a fair value gap behind. We're waiting for price to come back down. Protected low. But again, the risk on, if you did actually take this trade, is below where the sells, the stop losses are. You've got a fair value gap here. So in reality, you should be coming to as low as this, to be fair. But we'll just keep it as it is between that protected low. And again, we need to see price come to the fair value gap here. Try and get us on a 1 to 4. That's as close as I'm going to get it to a 1 to 4. A 1 to 4. Are we going to get a touch in on the price on that fair value gap? Let's see. It's like I say, price can be so frustrating at times. You can just see him miss it by a pip or two. Price where it stands at the minute, we're around about 1 pip from an entry. 4 seconds of the candle, we might get that little push down, to be fair, Didn't quite get it. How about the open of the next candle? And we still target the open of the midnight of today's session. Because now we're definitely sort of breaking structure of these areas here. And again, just to remind you, we took a sell position. We took a sell position this morning, pre-London Open, because I thought the direction was going to be for the previous daily low, when in fact, when we took the entry over here, the position for the liquidity grab was for the lunchtime hour of the previous New York session. So we had the liquidity grab from that, which is the first part of the trading plan. Then we wait for a displacement from the previous structure, high or low. And then we got that. We look for any fair value gap that was left behind, which was this here. Wasn't quite quick enough to get in on that. The trade actually ended up going for the fair value gap up here, which gave a 1 to 3.75. So the directional bias on that was spot on when we first marked that up. We try to get in on a fair value gap here because we broke structure here, displacement to the high side, fair value gap left behind. There was nothing came back to mitigate into that. And as we broke through that structure, we broke through another lower high here. We come back down to sort of create some more liquidity down here. And then we broke this high side here because there's a bit of a liquidity grab here with regards to that area there. Okay. Coming back down. And then from there, we got the displacement again from a liquidity grab. We've left behind a fair value gap, waiting for price to come back in to mitigate into this area. And if we get that, again, I'm not going to set this as a trade. I'm not comfortable enough to set it as a trade. We've caught some little bits of profit today already. We just want to see if this tags into that area. We're around about not even half a pip from the touch. Come on. And it looks like it may have just touched. There's the touch. We'll see if this range will hold. Okay, so we've got a range at the moment. This lower to here. Again, if I highlight this and I put it in yellow, there's a range there at the moment where we're high to low. And now we've got target areas of this lower high, this lower high, this lower high, and then the midnight open from where the New York came. That's the midnight open. Let's just see if this will hold structure. Let's see if we'll get that push. And like I say, guys, this is like this. I'm not perfect at this. I've got a little bit of an eye for structure and price action. I'm trying to learn the different terminologies and different things on the ICT stuff. But we'll see how this goes. Again, 1 to 3 and a bit. We got just not even a percentage off this one. Moved to SL to break even a little bit too early again. Something I need to practice and learn upon and get better at with the patience. I'll see if this structure will hold. Okay, I'm going to pause the video. We'll be back in a short while. Right, guys, so we're in a bit of drawdown there. At the moment, we're now going to be coming towards the end of the London kill zone, you know. So I'm going to call the video there. We've watched price action. We've marked charts up. We've marked it going through when we broke liquidity, got the grabs, look for the displacements. Oh, apologize about that. So we, like I say, we have had a lot of liquidity grabs, displacements, fair value gaps. It's just a matter of keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and learning to identify these areas. Again, as you can see, we've marked areas up as we're coming back on that price. The price is starting to come back through. So I've enjoyed this session. I've took a little bit of profit from this morning, which is always the goal. Yes, overall, it is paper trading. At this time, I'm not massively confident in trading this way all the time on a method myself. It may be something I might try and put myself through a challenge with, to be fair. Just to see how it goes, because basically until you put yourself out of your comfort zone, then you don't know how you're going to progress. And without failing, without failing, you're not going to learn, because fail just means first attempt in learning. FAIL, first attempt in learning. That's what fail means. You never lose. You just gain a lesson from what you've been going through, you know. So at the moment, this looks as if it may push that a little bit higher, and we may get that. But I'm going to stop the video here. What I'll do is on my Facebook wall, I'll post the end result of what happens on this, and it'll be below the YouTube link on this video. Okay, guys. So for now, I shall see you all later. Don't forget to hit the subscribe, like, and please comment on the videos. Let me know if you're enjoying these videos. Okay. Shall see you all later.